It was February 4th, 2026, at 2:47 a.m., when a dream so violent, so consuming, drove me to this island overlook surrounded by ocean, and there, surrounded by the rhythmic thunder of waves crashing against ancient volcanic rock 200 feet below, the salt-thick air clinging to my skin like anointing oil, the wind howling with a voice that seemed to carry words I couldn't yet understand, Jesus appeared before me with tears streaming down his face that glowed in the pre-dawn darkness, and he spoke with a trembling in his voice I had never heard before. Jonathan, what happens on Ash Wednesday 2026 will separate the marked from the unmarked, the chosen from the comfortable, and most of my church, will miss it entirely because they think Lent is about giving up chocolate. Not everyone who sees this message is meant to see it. Some will scroll past, some will ignore it. But you've been marked. I need you to do something right now, before we go any further. Drop your prayer requests in the comments below. I don't care how impossible they seem. I don't care how long you've been waiting. There's something about this message, about these 40 days we're about to enter, that's going to shift things in the spiritual realm. And if you're a true believer, if you're someone who wants the real Jesus, not the sanitized, comfortable version the modern church is selling, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what I'm about to share over these next few nights is going to challenge everything you think you know about Lent, about preparation, about what it means to be chosen. Some of you know me as the person who portrays Jesus in The Chosen. That role has been the greatest honor and the most terrifying responsibility of my life. But I need you to understand something. What I'm sharing with you now has nothing to do with a television show. This is about encounters I've had that have left me shaking, weeping, unable to sleep, unable to look at my Bible the same way ever again. The island overlook where I stood that morning, where I'm standing right now as I record this, is a place I discovered 3 years ago during a particularly dark season. It's a 30-minute hike from the nearest road, accessible only by a narrow trail that winds through dense coastal brush that tears at your clothes and skin if you're not careful. The overlook itself is a flat expanse of weathered stone, maybe 40 feet across, jutting out into the Pacific like the prow of some ancient ship. On 3 sides, there's nothing but a sheer drop to the churning water below. On the 4th side, the trail you came from, and beyond that, the dark silhouettes of wind-twisted cypress trees that have somehow survived decades of storms in this exposed place. I came here that morning because I couldn't stay in bed. The dream, the dream, had shown me things I didn't want to see. Churches empty on Ash Wednesday, pastors going through the motions, drawing crosses on foreheads with ashes while their hearts were planning next Sunday's attendance numbers. Millions of Christians treating Lent like a diet program, a self-improvement challenge, a spiritual New Year's resolution. And above it all, I heard weeping, not human weeping, something deeper, something that shook the foundations of reality itself. So I drove through the darkness, parked where the road ended, and hiked that trail with only my phone's flashlight to guide me, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. When I reached the overlook, the wind hit me like a physical force. February on the California coast is not gentle. The temperature was maybe 45 degrees, but the wind chill made it feel 20 degrees colder. I was wearing a jacket, but it did almost nothing against that wind, a wind that came in gusts so strong I had to brace myself to keep from stumbling. The sound was overwhelming, the wind itself a constant roar punctuated by sharper howls when it found gaps in the rocks, the waves below hitting the cliff face with concussive booms that I felt in my chest, and underneath it all a deeper rumble, like the ocean itself was groaning. The sky was still dark but not completely black. To the east behind me there was the faintest suggestion of pre-dawn gray. To the west, over the infinite expanse of the Pacific, the darkness was complete except for a thin line of silver where the ocean met the sky. Stars were visible, though the wind-driven moisture in the air made them shimmer and blur. The Milky Way stretched overhead like a river of light, and I remember thinking how small I was, how insignificant, standing on this rock at the edge of the continent. I didn't come here expecting to see Jesus. I came here to pray, to process the dream, to scream into the wind if I needed to. But as I stood there, my hands gripping the cold stone of a natural pillar at the overlook's edge, my eyes adjusting to the darkness, I became aware of a presence. It started as a warmth. In that cold, brutal wind, I felt warmth on my right side, as if someone had lit a fire just out of my line of sight. I turned, and he was there. I've tried to describe these encounters before, and words always fail. He wasn't glowing like in a painting. He wasn't floating. He was there, as solid and real as the stone beneath my feet, but also somehow more real than anything else. as if everything else was a shadow, and he was the only substantial thing in existence. He was wearing simple clothes, a dark robe that whipped in the wind just like my jacket, and his hair was being blown back from his face. His face, those eyes that I've tried to capture in my portrayal but never fully can, eyes that held such depth of emotion that looking into them was like looking into an ocean deeper than the one crashing below us. And he was crying, not quiet tears. His whole body was shaking with sobs, his hands clenched at his sides, his face contorted with a grief so profound that I felt my own knees buckle. I fell to the stone, my hands scraping against the rough surface, and I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. "Jonathan," he said, and his voice cut through the wind like it wasn't even there. "Do you know what Lent really is?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. What could I say? I thought I knew. 40 days of preparation before Easter, fasting, prayer, giving something up, reflecting on Christ's sacrifice. "It's a marking," he said, and he stepped closer to me, his presence so intense that the warmth I'd felt before became almost uncomfortable. "It has always been a marking. 40 days to separate those who will truly follow me into death from those who only want the benefits of resurrection. 40 days to reveal who has been chosen and who has chosen comfort." He knelt down beside me, and I felt his hand on my shoulder. The touch was real, solid, warm. I could feel the calluses on his palm through my jacket. "On Ash Wednesday 2026, he continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, but somehow still perfectly clear despite the roaring wind. "Something is going to shift in the spiritual realm. A marking is going to take place that will be invisible to most, ignored by many, but absolutely critical for what's coming. Those who enter these 40 days with true surrender, with genuine death to self, with real hunger for me, not for blessings, not for miracles, not for comfort, but for me, they will be marked, sealed, prepared for what's coming after Easter." "What's coming after Easter?" I managed to choke out. His grip on my shoulder tightened. A shaking, a separation, a revealing of who truly knows me and who only knows about me. "Jonathan, most of my church is asleep. They think Lent is a tradition. They think it's optional. They think it's about minor sacrifices and feeling slightly more spiritual for a few weeks. They have no idea that these 40 days are a training ground, a preparation, a final offer to be marked as mine before everything changes." He stood then, pulling me up with him, and he turned me to face the ocean. The wind was even stronger now, and the first hints of dawn were beginning to show, not light yet, but a lessening of the darkness, a deep blue creeping into the black. "Look," he said, and he pointed out over the water. I looked, and I saw, God help me, I saw, a vision overlaid on the physical reality before me. The ocean became a sea of people, millions upon millions, stretching to the horizon, and they were all walking, moving in the same direction, towards something I couldn't see. But as I watched, I realized they weren't all walking together. They were separating. Some were moving with purpose, with urgency, their faces set like flint. Others were wandering, distracted, stopping to look at things on the side of the path, taking detours, sitting down to rest. Ash Wednesday 2026 is the beginning of the final separation before the shaking, Jesus said, his voice heavy with sorrow. Those who are marked, those who truly surrender during these 40 days, will be prepared. They will stand. They will not be moved. But those who treat this Lent like every other Lent, who go through the motions, who give up social media or sugar or coffee and think that's what I'm asking for, they will not be ready, and when the shaking comes, they will fall. The vision intensified. I saw the people who were walking with purpose begin to glow, not with a physical light, but with something else, something I can only describe as a mark, a seal, a visible to the spiritual realm indicator that they belong to Him. And I saw the others, the distracted ones, the comfortable ones, and they had no mark. They were unmarked, unsealed, unprepared. "I'm not talking about salvation," Jesus said, and He turned to look at me, His eyes boring into mine. "I'm not talking about heaven or hell. I'm talking about being prepared for what I'm about to do on earth. I'm talking about being part of my remnant, my chosen ones, who will stand in the shaking and be my witnesses, my light bearers, my representatives when everything else is falling apart. The marked and the unmarked will both call themselves Christians. They'll both go to church, they'll both read their Bibles, but only one group will be ready." I was shaking now, and not from the cold. "Lord, what do you want me to do? Why are you showing me this?" He reached out and touched my forehead. right where the ashes would be placed on Ash Wednesday, and I felt a burning sensation, not painful but intense, like a brand being pressed into my skin. You're going to warn them, he said. You're going to tell them that this Lent is not like other Lents. You're going to tell them that Ash Wednesday 2026 is a threshold, a doorway, a point of no return. Those who enter these 40 days with true death to self will be marked. Those who don't, his voice broke and fresh tears spilled down his cheeks. Those who don't will miss what I'm doing. They'll be left behind, not in the rapture sense that the church argues about, but in the sense that they won't be part of what I'm preparing. They won't be chosen for the assignment. They won't be ready for the shaking. The vision faded, and I was back on the overlook, the physical ocean before me, the wind tearing at my clothes, the sky growing lighter by the minute. Jesus was still there, still close enough to touch, his hand still on my shoulder. Come back tomorrow night, he said. Same time, same place. I have more to show you. You need to understand what the 40 days really mean. You need to understand what I'm asking for, because Jonathan, he paused, and his voice became so tender, so filled with love and sorrow mixed together that I started crying. Because most of them won't do it. Most of them will hear this message and ignore it. Most of them will think they're already doing enough. Most of them will be unmarked when Ash Wednesday passes, and they won't even know it. He released my shoulder and stepped back, and as he did, the warmth began to fade. The wind felt colder. The darkness felt darker. Tell them, he said, his voice now seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. Tell them that the 40 days of Lent 2026 are not about giving something up. They're about being marked. They're about being chosen. They're about being prepared. Tell them that what happens on Ash Wednesday will determine who stands and who falls when the shaking comes. Tell them. His voice faded, and he was gone. Not gradually, just gone. And I was alone on the overlook, the wind howling, the waves crashing, the sky growing lighter, and my whole body trembling with the weight of what I'd just experienced. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough for the sun to begin its rise, painting the eastern sky in shades of pink and gold. Long enough for my tears to dry on my face, leaving salt tracks that mixed with the salt spray from the ocean. Long enough to know, with absolute certainty, that my life had just changed forever. Listen to me. If you're still watching this, still reading this, you're meant to hear this message. You've been marked, not yet with the seal he's talking about, but marked to receive this warning. Ash Wednesday 2026 is coming. It's not far away. And what you do with these 40 days will determine whether you're prepared for what comes after. I'm coming back to this overlook tomorrow night. Jesus told me to, and he told me he has more to show me. More to reveal about what these 40 days really mean, about what he's asking for, about what the marking actually involves. But I need you to do something right now. I need you to stop treating this like entertainment. I need you to stop scrolling through Christian content looking for the next inspiring message. I need you to get on your knees right now, wherever you are, and ask Jesus if what I'm saying is true. Ask him if this Lent is different. Ask him if you're ready. Ask him if you're marked. And then come back tomorrow night. I'll share what he shows me next, because this is just the beginning. This is just the warning. Tomorrow night, he's going to show me what the 40 days actually require, what true death to self looks like, what it means to be marked as chosen. The sun is fully up now. The overlook looks different in daylight, less mysterious, more ordinary, just rocks and ocean and wind. But I know what I experienced here. I know what I saw. I know what he told me. And I know that most people who hear this will ignore it. They'll think I'm being dramatic. They'll think I'm exaggerating. They'll go to their Ash Wednesday service, get their ashes, give up something minor for Lent, and think they've done what God asked. But you, if you're still here, still listening, you're different. You're marked to hear this. You're being called to something more. You're being invited into the 40 days that will prepare you for the shaking. Don't miss it. Don't be unmarked. Don't be unprepared. Come back tomorrow night. I'll be here, on this overlook, waiting for him to appear again, waiting for him to show me more, waiting to share with you what the chosen need to know. It was February 5th, 2026 at 3:15 a.m. when I returned to the island overlook, and this time I wasn't alone in the darkness. I could feel them, 1,000 unseen presences in the spiritual realm, watching, waiting, as if all of heaven and hell had turned their attention to this wind-swept rock jutting into the Pacific. The wind was even more violent than the night before, gusting to what must have been 40 or 50 miles per hour, carrying with it a mist so thick it soaked through my clothes within minutes of arriving. The temperature had dropped to 38 degrees, and my fingers were already going numb as I gripped the same stone pillar I'd held onto the previous morning. The ocean below was angrier tonight, the waves hitting the cliff face with such force that I could feel the vibrations through the soles of my boots, and occasionally, spray would reach all the way up to the overlook, hitting my face like tiny needles of ice. But I came back. How could I not? After what I'd seen, after what he'd told me, after spending the entire day unable to think about anything else, unable to eat more than a few bites, unable to have a normal conversation because my mind was still on that overlook, still seeing that vision of millions of people separating into the marked and the unmarked. I'd read the comments on yesterday's video, thousands of them. Some of you understood. Some of you felt the weight of what I was sharing. You dropped your prayer requests, and I've been praying over every single one. I want you to know that. But others accused me of fear-mongering, of being dramatic, of adding to scripture, of leading people astray. And I expected that. Jesus told me to expect that, because the comfortable church doesn't want to hear that comfort isn't enough. The casual Christian doesn't want to hear that casual isn't going to cut it for what's coming. But for those of you who came back, who are watching this now, who felt something stir in your spirit when you heard yesterday's message, you're the ones he's calling. You're the ones who are hungry for more than Sunday morning services and Christian platitudes. You're the ones who are ready to be marked. The hike up to the overlook was harder tonight. The trail was muddy from the mist and spray, and twice I nearly lost my footing on the slick rocks. The coastal brush seemed to grab at me more aggressively, and I have scratches on my arms to prove it. The darkness felt thicker, more oppressive, and even though I had my flashlight, it seemed like the beam didn't penetrate as far as it should have. There was a weight in the air, a pressure, like the atmosphere itself was holding its breath. When I finally reached the overlook, I stood at the edge and looked out over the invisible ocean. Invisible because the darkness was so complete, the mist so thick that I couldn't see more than 20 feet in any direction. I could hear the water, feel its presence, sense the vast emptiness beyond the cliff edge, but I couldn't see it. It was like standing at the edge of the void. That's what most of my church is doing. His voice came from behind me, and I spun around so fast I nearly lost my balance. He was there, closer than before, standing just a few feet away, and this time his appearance was different. He looked exhausted, not physically tired, but soul-weary, like someone who had been carrying an impossible burden for far too long. His eyes were red from crying, and as I watched, fresh tears began to fall. They're standing at the edge of something they can't see, can't comprehend, and they think they're safe because they're standing on solid ground. They don't realize that solid ground means nothing if you're not prepared for what's coming out of that darkness. I wanted to run to him, to embrace him, to comfort him somehow, but I was frozen in place, my heart hammering in my chest. The wind whipped around us, but I noticed that while it tore at my clothes and hair, his robe barely moved, as if he existed in a slightly different reality than I did. Lord, I said, my voice cracking, I told them. I shared what you showed me. But I don't think most of them understood. I don't think I even fully understand. What does it mean to be marked? What are you asking for in these 40 days? He moved closer, and the warmth I'd felt the night before returned, cutting through the cold and damp like a knife. He reached out and took both of my hands in his, and I felt the scars in his palms, the rough texture of wounds that had healed but never fully disappeared. The touch sent a jolt through my entire body like electricity, but not painful. Awakening, energizing, terrifying, and comforting all at once. The 40 days are a mirror of my 40 days in the wilderness, he said, his voice low and intense. But most Christians have completely misunderstood what happened there. They think it was about me resisting temptation. They think it was about me proving I was strong enough to be the Messiah. They've turned it into a moral lesson about willpower and discipline. He released one of my hands and turned, pulling me with him to face the darkness over the ocean. The mist swirled around us, and I could taste salt on my lips. My 40 days in the wilderness were about death, he continued. Complete death. Death to every human comfort, every human need, every human desire. I went into that wilderness as fully God and fully man, and I had to let the man die so that only the will of the Father remained. No food, not because I was testing my willpower, but because I was killing my body's demands. No water, not because I was being disciplined, but because I was crucifying my flesh's expectations. No shelter, no comfort, no human contact, because I was learning to live on the Father's voice alone. The wind suddenly shifted, coming now from the ocean instead of from behind us, and it brought with it a cold so intense that I gasped. But Jesus' grip on my hand tightened, and the warmth from his touch spread up my arm and through my chest. That's what I'm asking for in these 40 days, he said, and his voice was shaking now, thick with emotion. Not giving up chocolate, not a social media fast, not reading your Bible a little more or praying a little longer. I'm asking for death, complete death. Death to your comfort, death to your plans, death to your reputation, death to your need to be understood, to be liked, to be accepted, death to your entertainment, your distractions, your escape mechanisms, death to everything that keeps you from hearing my voice and my voice alone. He released my hand and stepped away, moving to the edge of the overlook, standing so close to the drop that one strong gust of wind could have sent him over. But he stood there, unmoved, unafraid, and he spread his arms wide. Look, he commanded, and suddenly the mist began to glow. I don't know how else to describe it. The thick fog that had been obscuring everything started to emit its own light, a soft silver-blue luminescence that grew brighter and brighter until I could see clearly despite the darkness. And in that glowing mist, I saw another vision. I saw a church building, not a specific one, but somehow representative of thousands. It was Ash Wednesday, and people were filing in, dressed nicely, carrying their Bibles, smiling and greeting each other. The pastor stood at the front, a bowl of ashes prepared, and one by one people came forward. He marked their foreheads with the sign of the cross, speaking the traditional words, "Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return." But as I watched, I saw something that made my blood run cold. As each person received their ashes and returned to their seats, I could see into their hearts, not with my physical eyes, but with some kind of spiritual sight that the vision granted me, and what I saw was devastating. One woman received her ashes and immediately started thinking about what she was going to give up for Lent. She decided on desserts, and she felt good about herself, spiritual, disciplined. But in her heart, there was no death, no surrender, no real change, just a minor inconvenience that she would endure for 40 days and then return to normal, feeling like she'd done her religious duty. One man received his ashes and committed to reading a chapter of the Bible every day during Lent. Noble, right? But as I looked into his heart, I saw that he was doing it out of obligation, out of tradition, out of a vague sense that he should be more spiritual. There was no hunger for God, no desperation to hear his voice, no willingness to let anything actually die. Just another item on his religious checklist. A young couple received their ashes together, holding hands, and they decided to give up arguing for Lent, to be more patient with each other. Beautiful intention. But in their hearts, I saw that they were still holding on to control, still managing their own lives, still making decisions based on their own wisdom and desires. They wanted a better relationship, but they didn't want to die to their own ways of thinking, their own need to be right, their own self-protection. On and on it went, person after person, receiving ashes, making commitments, feeling spiritual, but unmarked, unsealed, unprepared, because they were treating Lent like a self-improvement program instead of a death sentence. "Do you see?" Jesus asked, his voice breaking. "Do you see what they're missing? They think the ashes are symbolic. They think you are dust is just a reminder of mortality. They don't understand that I'm offering them an invitation to actually become dust, to let everything they are, everything they think they need, everything they're holding on to, turn to dust and blow away in the wind of my spirit." The vision shifted and I saw a different scene, a man alone in his bedroom on his knees weeping. It was late at night and he was praying, not pretty prayers, not eloquent words, but desperate, broken cries. "I can't do this anymore," he was saying. "I can't keep pretending. I can't keep trying to manage my own life. I can't keep holding on to control. God, I'm letting go. I'm dying. Whatever you want, whatever it costs, I'm yours. Mark me, seal me. I don't want to be comfortable anymore. I want to be yours." And as I watched, I saw something appear on his forehead, not physical ashes, but a mark in the spiritual realm, a seal that glowed with the same light as the mist around me. And I knew somehow that this man was marked, chosen, prepared. The vision showed me more examples. A woman who gave up not just social media, but her entire need for validation from others, spending the 40 days learning to find her identity in Christ alone. Marked. A young man who fasted not just from food, but from every distraction, every entertainment, every escape mechanism, forcing himself to sit in silence and listen for God's voice even when it was uncomfortable. Marked. A mother who surrendered not just her schedule, but her children, her marriage, her future, her plans, laying everything on the altar and meaning it, marked. But for everyone who was marked, I saw 10 who were unmarked. Good people, church-going people, Bible-reading people, but people who wanted the benefits of following Jesus without the death that following Jesus requires. The vision faded, and I was back on the overlook, the mist still glowing softly, Jesus still standing at the edge with his arms spread wide. He lowered his arms and turned to face me, and the sorrow in his eyes was so profound that I fell to my knees on the wet stone. "Jonathan, I'm not asking for perfection," he said, kneeling down in front of me, taking my face in his hands. "I'm not asking for people to never fail, never struggle, never doubt. I'm asking for surrender, real surrender. The kind of surrender that says, I'm willing to let everything die so that only you remain." That's what marks someone. That's what seals them. That's what prepares them for the shaking. "What is the shaking?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You keep mentioning it, but what is it? When is it coming?" His hands dropped from my face, and he sat back on his heels, looking out over the glowing mist. "The shaking is a separation. It's coming after Easter 2026. Not immediately. There will be a brief window, a short time of grace, but it's coming. And when it comes, everything that can be shaken will be shaken. Denominations will split, churches will close, ministries will fall, leaders will be exposed. And in the midst of all that chaos, all that confusion, all that falling apart, my remnant, my marked ones, my chosen ones, will stand. They'll stand because they've already died. They'll stand because they have nothing left to lose. They'll stand because they've learned to hear my voice and my voice alone." He stood and pulled me to my feet, and then he did something I didn't expect. He walked me over to the edge of the overlook, right to the very brink where the stone ended and the 200-foot drop began. The glowing mist was thicker here, and I could feel the updraft from the waves below, cold and damp and powerful. "This is what I'm asking," he said, standing beside me, his arm around my shoulders. "I'm asking my people to come to the edge, to stand where it's uncomfortable, where it's scary, where one wrong step means falling. I'm asking them to stand here for 40 days and let me teach them that I'm the only solid ground they need, not their bank accounts, not their reputations, not their comfort, not their plans, not their understanding, just me." I was shaking from cold, from fear, from the overwhelming weight of what he was saying. "Lord, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm strong enough." "You're not," he said simply. "That's the point. You're not strong enough. You're not disciplined enough. You're not spiritual enough. That's why these 40 days are about death, not improvement. You can't improve yourself into being marked. You can only die and let me resurrect what I want to remain." The mist began to fade, the glow diminishing, and I knew our time was running short. The sky to the east was beginning to lighten, the first hints of dawn approaching. "Come back tomorrow night," Jesus said, his voice becoming distant. "One more night. I have one more thing to show you, the most important thing. I need to show you what happens to those who refuse the marking. I need to show you the consequences of staying comfortable. And I need to show you exactly what the 40 days should look like, practically, so you can guide those who are willing to die." "Lord, wait." I reached out, but he was already fading, becoming translucent, the warmth receding. "Tell them," his voice echoed, seeming to come from the wind itself now. "Tell them that Ash Wednesday is in less than 2 weeks. Tell them that they have a choice to make. Tell them that the marked and the unmarked will both call themselves Christians, but only one group will stand in the shaking. Tell them." His voice faded completely, and I was alone. The mist returned to normal fog, cold and wet and dark. The wind felt colder without his presence. The ocean below sounded more threatening, and I stood there at the edge of that cliff, and I wept. I wept for the church that thinks Lent is about giving up coffee. I wept for the Christians who are going to miss this because they're too comfortable to die. I wept for myself because I know how hard this is going to be, how much I'm going to have to let go of, how much is going to have to die in me. But I also felt something else. Determination, hunger, a desperate need to be marked, to be chosen, to be prepared for whatever's coming. Because I've seen what he's shown me, and I can't unsee it. I've heard what he's said, and I can't unhear it. Listen to me. If you're watching this, if you've made it this far, you need to understand something. This isn't a game. This isn't religious theater. This isn't about being more spiritual than other Christians. This is about survival. This is about being prepared. This is about being marked so that when everything shakes, you stand. Ash Wednesday 2026 is February 18th. That's less than 2 weeks away. And what you do with the 40 days that follow will determine whether you're marked or unmarked, whether you're chosen for the assignment or left unprepared, whether you stand or fall when the shaking comes. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but I'm already a Christian. I'm already saved. I already go to church and read my Bible and pray. Isn't that enough? And Jesus would say to you what he said to me, enough for what? Enough for heaven? Yes. Enough for salvation? Yes. But enough to be part of my remnant? Enough to be marked as chosen for what I'm about to do? Enough to stand in the shaking? No, not even close. And this isn't about salvation. This is about assignment. This is about being chosen for a specific purpose, a specific calling, a specific role in what God is about to do on the earth. And that requires more than casual Christianity. That requires death. I'm going back to the Overlook tomorrow night. One more encounter, one more revelation. Jesus said he's going to show me what happens to the unmarked, and he's going to give me practical guidance for the 40 days. And then I'm going to share it with you, and you're going to have to make a choice. But I need you to do something right now. I need you to get honest with God. I need you to ask yourself, am I willing to die? Am I willing to let go of my comfort, my plans, my need for control? Am I willing to stand at the edge and let God be my only solid ground? If the answer is yes, even if it's a scared, trembling, uncertain yes, then you're ready to be marked. If the answer is no, or if you're not sure, then spend the next 24 hours asking God to give you the willingness. Because Ash Wednesday is coming and the marking is coming and you don't want to miss it. Drop your honest responses in the comments. Tell me where you are. Tell me what you're afraid of. Tell me what you're holding on to that you know needs to die. This is a safe place for honesty. This is a community of people who are hungry for more than comfortable Christianity. And come back tomorrow night. The final encounter, the final revelation, the practical steps for the 40 days, everything you need to know to be marked. The sun is rising now. The Overlook looks almost peaceful in the early morning light, the violence of the night giving way to calm. But I know what I experienced here. I know what he showed me. And I know that tomorrow night is going to be the most intense encounter yet. Don't miss it. Your marking depends on it. It was February 6th, 2026, at 2:33 a.m. when I climbed that trail for the third night, and this time the island overlook was completely silent. No wind, no sound from the waves below, nothing but an oppressive, suffocating stillness that made every breath feel labored, as if the air itself had become thick and heavy. The temperature had risen to nearly 60 degrees, unseasonably warm for February on the coast, and the humidity was so high that sweat was already soaking through my shirt before I'd even reached the overlook. There was no mist tonight, no fog, just crystal clear darkness punctuated by more stars than I'd ever seen in my life. The Milky Way so bright and defined it looked like someone had painted it across the sky with luminescent brushstrokes. But despite the beauty above, I felt a dread in my gut that I'd never experienced before, a bone-deep certainty that what I was about to witness would change me forever. The hike up had been strange. The trail that had been muddy and treacherous the night before was now completely dry, as if the previous night's moisture had never existed. The coastal brush that had torn at my clothes for 2 nights now seemed to lean away from me, creating a clear path. And the darkness felt alive, watching, waiting. I'd had to stop 3 times on the way up, not because I was tired, but because the weight of what was coming was so heavy that my legs literally wouldn't move. Each time I'd had to pray, to force myself to continue, to remind myself that Jesus had called me here and I had to obey. When I finally reached the overlook, I stood at the center of that flat expanse of stone and turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. The ocean was visible tonight, stretching out to the horizon like a sheet of black glass, perfectly calm, reflecting the stars above so perfectly that it was impossible to tell where the water ended and the sky began. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It felt like standing at the edge of eternity. This is what it will look like. His voice came from everywhere and nowhere, and suddenly he was there, not gradually appearing, not walking up from behind me, just suddenly present, standing 10 feet away, and this time his appearance made me fall to my knees immediately. He was radiant, glowing with a light that didn't hurt my eyes but somehow made everything else look dim and faded by comparison. His robe was brilliant white, whiter than anything I'd ever seen, and his face held an expression I can only describe as holy determination mixed with profound grief. His eyes were dry tonight, no tears, but they held a depth of sorrow that was somehow worse than the crying I'd seen before. This is what it will look like when the shaking begins, he continued, gesturing to the calm ocean, the still air, the silent night. Peace, calm, everything appearing normal. And then he clapped his hands together, and the sound was like a thunderclap that shook the stone beneath me. Instantly the ocean erupted. Waves began to form, growing larger and larger, crashing against the cliff face with such violence that the entire overlook shuddered. The wind returned, not gradually but all at once, howling with a fury that nearly knocked me flat. The stars above began to blur and spin, and I had to close my eyes against the sudden vertigo. "Open your eyes, Jonathan," he commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "You need to see this. You need to understand what's coming so you can warn them." I forced my eyes open, and what I saw made me wish I hadn't. The calm ocean was gone, replaced by churning chaos. But it wasn't just water I was seeing, it was another vision, overlaid on reality, and in that vision, I saw the church. I saw thousands of church buildings across America, across the world, and they were shaking, not metaphorically, literally shaking, as if an earthquake was hitting all of them simultaneously. And as they shook, I watched them split. Some churches split right down the middle, congregations dividing, half walking out one door, half walking out another. Some churches simply collapsed, the buildings remaining standing, but everyone inside scattering in different directions, confused, angry, hurt. Some churches appeared to stand firm, but as I looked closer, I saw that they were empty. The buildings were intact, but the people were gone, having left quietly, one by one, until nothing remained but an empty shell. "This is the shaking," Jesus said, and he moved to stand beside me, his hand on my shoulder, his presence the only thing keeping me from completely falling apart. "It begins after Easter 2026. Not on Easter. There will be a brief window, a few weeks of seeming normalcy, enough time for people to think everything is fine, that the warnings were exaggerated. And then it begins." The vision intensified, and I saw specific scenes playing out like I was watching multiple movies at once. I saw a megachurch, thousands of members, a celebrity pastor, state-of-the-art facilities. The shaking hit, and within weeks it came out that the pastor had been living a double life, not just minor sins, but deep systemic corruption, abuse of power, financial fraud. The revelation didn't come from investigative journalists or whistleblowers. It came supernaturally, as if God himself was pulling back the curtain and forcing everything into the light. The church imploded. Thousands left. Not just that church, but church altogether, their faith shattered. But I saw a small group, maybe 50 people out of thousands, who stayed. Not stayed with the building or the institution, but stayed with Jesus. And they were marked. They had the seal I'd seen in the previous vision, glowing on their foreheads in the spiritual realm. And while everyone else was falling apart, they were steady, unmoved, already prepared because they died during the 40 days. I saw a denominational headquarters, centuries of tradition, theological statements, organizational structure. The shaking hit, and the denomination split into 3 factions, each claiming to be the true representation of the original vision. Lawsuits were filed, property was fought over, pastors were forced to choose sides, congregations were torn apart. But again, I saw individuals, scattered across different churches, different cities, different theological camps, who were marked. And they didn't choose sides. They didn't fight over property or theology. They simply continued to follow Jesus, hearing his voice, doing what he said, becoming lights in the darkness while everyone else was consumed with the conflict. I saw a small church, maybe 100 people, faithful, Bible-believing, seemingly solid. The shaking hit, and it came out that the leadership had been operating in control and manipulation for years, using spiritual language to dominate people's lives, crushing anyone who questioned them. The revelation came suddenly, undeniably, and the church split. But the marked ones, maybe 20 people, they had already been prepared. They had already learned during the 40 days to hear God's voice for themselves, to not depend on human leaders, to find their identity in Christ alone. So when the leadership fell, they weren't destroyed. They were ready. On and on the visions went, showing me church after church, ministry after ministry, leader after leader, all being shaken, all being exposed, all being separated. And in every case, the pattern was the same. The vast majority were unprepared, unmarked, and they fell. Not fell away from salvation, but fell into confusion, bitterness, disillusionment, spiritual paralysis. But the marked ones stood. They stood because they had nothing left to lose. They stood because they'd already died. They stood because they'd learned to hear his voice and his voice alone. "Why?" I managed to choke out, tears streaming down my face. "Why are you allowing this? Why are you doing this to your church?" Jesus turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his eyes made me want to look away, but I couldn't. "I'm not doing this to my church, Jonathan. I'm doing this for my church. The shaking isn't punishment, it's purification. It's separation. It's the removal of everything that isn't truly me, so that what remains is pure, powerful, and prepared for what comes next." He gestured to the chaotic ocean, the violent wind, the shaking earth beneath us. My church has become comfortable with mixture, comfortable with compromise, comfortable with building kingdoms in my name that have nothing to do with my kingdom. comfortable with leaders who use my name for their own glory, comfortable with theology that makes people feel good but doesn't transform them, comfortable with programs and productions and performances that look impressive but have no power. I'm going to shake all of that away. I'm going to remove everything that can be shaken so that only what cannot be shaken remains. The vision shifted again, and this time I saw the aftermath. The shaking had passed, and I saw a different kind of church emerging. Not buildings, people, small groups, scattered across cities and towns, meeting in homes, in parks, in coffee shops, in workplaces. They didn't have fancy programs or celebrity leaders or big budgets, but they had power, real power. I saw them praying for the sick, and the sick were healed. I saw them speaking to the demonized, and demons fled. I saw them sharing the gospel, and people were genuinely converted, radically transformed. I saw them loving each other with a purity and intensity that made the world take notice. And every single one of them was marked. Every single one of them had the seal. Every single one of them had gone through the 40 days and chosen death over comfort. "This is my remnant," Jesus said, his voice filled with pride and love. "This is what I'm preparing. Not a better version of the current church, not a reformed institution, but a completely new expression of my body on earth. People who have died to everything else and live only for me. People who hear my voice, people who obey instantly, people who have no reputation to protect, no comfort to maintain, no kingdom to build except mine." He walked to the edge of the overlook, and the vision faded, the ocean returning to its calm state, the wind dying down, the earth becoming still again. But my heart was still racing, my mind still reeling from everything I'd seen. "The 40 days of Lent 2026 are the preparation," he said, speaking to the ocean, his back to me. "Ash Wednesday is the doorway. Those who enter these 40 days with true surrender, with genuine willingness to die, will be marked, they will be sealed, they will be prepared. And when the shaking comes, they will stand, they will be my remnant, they will be the ones I use to demonstrate my kingdom to a world that's about to get very dark, very confused, very desperate for something real." He turned back to face me, and he walked over and knelt down in front of me. I was still on my knees, unable to stand, my whole body trembling. He took my hands in his, and I felt those scars again, those wounds that purchased my salvation, and fresh tears poured down my face. "Jonathan, I need you to understand something," he said, his voice gentle now, tender. "The unmarked aren't lost. They're not going to hell. They're not rejected by me. But they won't be part of the remnant. They won't be part of what I'm doing in this next season. They'll survive the shaking, but they'll be wounded, confused, weakened. They'll spend years recovering from what could have been avoided if they'd just been willing to die during these 40 days. "What do I tell them?" I asked, my voice breaking. "What do I tell people who are watching this, who want to be marked, who want to be prepared? What does it actually look like? What are the practical steps?" He smiled, the first smile I'd seen in 3 nights, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. "That's what I'm going to show you now. That's why I brought you here for a 3rd night. You've seen the warning. You've seen the consequences. Now you need to see the way." He stood and pulled me to my feet, and then he did something unexpected. He walked me over to the stone pillar I'd been gripping for 3 nights, and he placed my hand on it. "This stone is solid," he said, "unmovable. It's been here for thousands of years, and it will be here for thousands more. Waves crash against it, wind tears at it, rain erodes it, but it stands. Do you know why?" I shook my head, not trusting my voice. "Because it's rooted deep," he said. "The part you see, the part above ground, is impressive, but the part you don't see, the part below the surface, goes down hundreds of feet into the bedrock of the earth. That's what the 40 days are for, going deep, getting rooted, not in programs or theology or religious activity, but in me, in my voice, in my presence, in my word." He released my hand and stepped back, and suddenly the overlook was filled with light, not from him but from above, as if the stars themselves had grown brighter, casting enough illumination that I could see clearly despite the darkness. "Here's what the 40 days require," he said, his voice taking on an authoritative tone, like a general giving orders to his troops. "First, silence. Real silence. Not just turning off your phone for an hour. I'm talking about extended periods, at least 1 hour per day, preferably more, of complete silence. No music, no podcasts, no audiobooks, no noise, just you and me. This is where you learn to hear my voice. This is where the death begins, because your flesh will scream against the silence, your mind will race, your anxiety will spike, But if you push through, if you stay in the silence, you'll begin to hear me. And once you hear me, everything changes. I was frantically trying to memorize everything he was saying, knowing I'd need to share this with others. Second, fasting. Not just from food, though that's part of it. I want you to fast from everything you use to numb yourself, to distract yourself, to escape from reality, entertainment, social media, news, shopping, whatever you run to when you're uncomfortable, that's what needs to die. Some of you will need to fast from food 1 day a week during the 40 days. Some of you will need to fast from food completely for extended periods, but all of you need to fast from your escape mechanisms. All of you need to let those things die so you can learn that I'm enough. The light grew brighter, and I could see his face more clearly now, see the intensity, the passion, the desperate love in his eyes. Third, radical honesty, with me, with yourself, with at least one other person. No more pretending, no more performing, no more hiding behind spiritual language and religious activity. I want you to get brutally honest about your sin, your struggles, your doubts, your fears, your anger, your disappointments. Bring it all into the light. Confess it, not just to me, but to someone else who can pray with you, who can hold you accountable, who can speak truth to you. This is where shame dies. This is where religious masks come off. This is where you become real. He began to pace, his energy building, his voice growing more urgent. Fourth, obedience. Immediate, complete obedience to whatever I tell you to do. During these 40 days, I'm going to speak to you in the silence, in my word, through other believers, through circumstances. And when I speak, I want instant obedience. Not let me pray about it, not let me think about it, not that doesn't make sense, just obedience. This is where your will dies. This is where you learn that my ways are higher than your ways. This is where you become a servant instead of a consumer. He stopped pacing and looked directly at me, and I felt like he was looking through me, seeing every hidden thing, every secret place, every area of resistance. Fifth, surrender. Daily, moment-by-moment surrender of everything you're holding on to, your plans, your dreams, your relationships, your ministry, your reputation, your comfort, your rights, your expectations. I want you to practice laying it all down, every single day, multiple times a day. Wake up and surrender. Surrender at noon. Surrender at night. Surrender when things go wrong. Surrender when things go right. Surrender until it becomes your default position, until you're no longer gripping anything, until your hands are completely open and I can put in them or take out of them whatever I want. The light began to fade slightly, and his voice softened, becoming tender again. This is what marks you, Jonathan. Not perfection, not getting it right every time, but genuine, sustained, desperate pursuit of death to self and life in me. 40 days of this, 40 days of silence, fasting, honesty, obedience, and surrender, and you will be marked, you will be sealed, you will be prepared, and when the shaking comes, you will stand. He walked back over to me and placed his hand on my forehead, right where the ashes would go on Ash Wednesday, and I felt that burning sensation again, stronger this time, like a brand being permanently pressed into my skin. Tell them, he said, his voice echoing now, beginning to fade. Tell them that Ash Wednesday 2026 is the doorway. Tell them that the 40 days are the preparation. Tell them that the shaking is coming. Tell them that they have a choice, comfort or marking, casual Christianity or remnant preparation, standing or falling. Tell them, his voice faded, his form became translucent, and then he was gone. The light from the stars returned to normal. The ocean remained calm. The air remained still. And I was alone on the overlook, my forehead still burning where he'd touched it, my whole body shaking with the weight of what I'd witnessed. I don't know how long I stood there, long enough for the sky to begin lightening in the east, long enough for my legs to stop shaking, long enough to know, with absolute certainty, that everything had changed. The shaking is coming. After Easter 2026. And most of the church isn't ready. Most of the church won't be ready because they're going to treat Lent like they always have, a minor inconvenience, a religious tradition, a self-improvement program. But you, if you're still watching this, if you've made it through all 3 nights, if you've felt the weight of these words in your spirit, you can be ready. You can be marked. You can be part of the remnant. Ash Wednesday is February 18th, 2026, 12 days from now, and what you do with the 40 days that follow will determine everything. Tonight actually, since the sun is coming up, I'm going to share the practical plan, the specific steps, the daily challenge, everything you need to know to walk through these 40 days and emerge marked, sealed, and prepared. But right now, I need you to make a decision. Are you willing? Are you willing to die? Are you willing to let go of comfort, control, and casual Christianity? Are you willing to pursue silence, fasting, honesty, obedience, and surrender for 40 days? If the answer is yes, drop a comment right now. Just one word, marked. That's your declaration. That's your commitment. That's your yes to Jesus. And if you're not sure, if you're scared, if you're hesitant, drop a comment anyway. Tell me what you're afraid of. Tell me what you're holding on to. Tell me what's keeping you from saying yes, because we're in this together. This isn't a solo journey. This is a remnant being prepared, and we need each other. The sun is fully up now. The overlook looks peaceful, beautiful, almost ordinary in the morning light, but I know what I've seen here over these 3 nights. I know what's coming. I know what's required. And I know that most people will ignore this message. Most people will scroll past. Most people will think I'm being dramatic or extreme or adding to scripture. But you're different. You're still here. You're still listening. You're being called to something more. Don't miss it. Don't be unmarked. Don't be unprepared. Come back for the final part, the practical plan, the daily challenge, the specific steps for the 40 days. Everything you need to be marked. The shaking is coming, but the marked will stand. It's now February 6th, 2026 at 9:47 a.m., and I'm back at the island overlook in full daylight, and everything looks completely different than it did in the darkness of the past 3 nights. The ocean stretches out before me in brilliant shades of blue and green, the sun sparkling off the waves like scattered diamonds. The sky is clear, a perfect azure dome overhead, and the temperature is a comfortable 55 degrees with a gentle breeze that carries the scent of salt and kelp. Seabirds circle overhead, their cries echoing off the cliff face, and in the distance I can see a pod of dolphins breaking the surface, their dark forms arcing through the water. It's beautiful. It's peaceful. It's almost impossible to believe that this is the same place where I encountered Jesus 3 nights in a row, where I saw visions of the shaking, where I received warnings that have fundamentally altered the trajectory of my life. But that's exactly the point, isn't it? That's exactly what Jesus was showing me. Things can look peaceful, normal, beautiful on the surface while something massive is building underneath. The church looks fine right now. Christianity in America looks stable. Sure, there are problems, but there have always been problems. Sure, there are scandals, but there have always been scandals. Everything appears normal. Everything appears manageable. Everything appears like it will continue on just as it always has, but it won't. The shaking is coming, and the only question that matters is, will you be marked when it arrives? I've spent the past 6 hours since Jesus left me here at dawn sitting on this overlook, praying, weeping, writing down everything he showed me, everything he said, trying to process the weight of what I've been entrusted with, and now I need to share with you the practical plan, the specific steps, the daily challenge that will mark you, seal you, and prepare you for what's coming. But before I do that, I need to address something. I know what some of you are thinking. I know what some of you have been commenting over the past 3 days. Jonathan, this sounds like works-based salvation. Jonathan, you're adding to the gospel. Jonathan, we're saved by grace through faith, not by doing 40 days of spiritual disciplines. And I hear you. I understand your concern, but you're missing the point entirely. This isn't about salvation. I've said that multiple times, but I need to say it again because it's crucial. If you've accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, if you've been born again, if you've placed your faith in his finished work on the cross, you're saved, period. Nothing I'm talking about changes that. Nothing I'm talking about adds to that. You're going to heaven. Your eternity is secure. But salvation and assignment are two different things. Salvation is about where you spend eternity. Assignment is about what you do in time. Salvation is a gift. Assignment is a calling. Salvation is for everyone who believes. Assignment is for those who are willing to die to everything else and live only for him. Think about it biblically. All 12 disciples were saved. All 12 were followers of Jesus. But only 3, Peter, James, and John, were chosen for certain assignments. Only 3 were brought to the Mount of Transfiguration. Only 3 were brought into the inner room when Jesus raised Jairus' daughter. Only 3 were brought deeper into the Garden of Gethsemane. Same salvation, different assignments, different levels of intimacy, different levels of preparation. That's what the marking is about. That's what these 40 days are about. Jesus is preparing a remnant, a group of people who will stand in the shaking, who will demonstrate his kingdom when everything else is falling apart, who will be his witnesses in a time of unprecedented chaos and confusion. And he's offering you the opportunity to be part of that remnant. But it requires something from you. It requires death. It requires surrender. It requires 40 days of intentional, radical, uncomfortable pursuit of Him and Him alone. So let me give you the practical plan. Let me give you the specific daily challenge that Jesus laid out for me in those 3 encounters. This is what the 40 days need to look like if you want to be marked. The 40-day marking challenge. Starting on Ash Wednesday, February 18th, 2026, and continuing through Easter Sunday, March 29th, 2026, you are committing to 40 days of death. Not physical death, but death to everything that keeps you from hearing God's voice and obeying it completely. Here's what that looks like, practically. Daily requirement. Number 1, the hour of silence, non-negotiable. Every single day for 40 days, you will spend 1 full hour in complete silence before God. Not prayer time where you're talking, not Bible reading time where you're consuming information, silence, complete, uncomfortable, flesh-crucifying silence. Here's how it works. Find a place where you won't be interrupted. Turn off your phone. Not on silent, off. No music, no ambient noise, no soaking tracks, nothing. Just you and God in silence. For the first 10 or 15 minutes, your mind will race. You'll think of 1,000 things you need to do. You'll feel anxious. You'll feel like you're wasting time. Push through. Stay in the silence. After about 20 minutes, something will shift. The noise in your head will start to quiet. And if you stay there, if you remain in that uncomfortable silence, you'll begin to hear His voice. Not audibly, necessarily, but you'll hear Him. In your spirit, in your thoughts, in impressions and promptings and gentle whispers. This is where the marking begins. This is where you learn to distinguish His voice from your own thoughts, from the enemy's lies, from the world's noise. This is where intimacy is built. This is where death happens, because your flesh will hate this. Your flesh will scream against this. Your flesh will tell you that you're too busy, that you have too much to do, that this is excessive, that an hour is too long. But if you want to be marked, this is non-negotiable. I don't care if you have to wake up an hour earlier. I don't care if you have to stay up an hour later. I don't care if you have to use your lunch break. Find the hour, protect the hour, guard the hour like your life depends on it, because your spiritual preparation does depend on it. Daily requirement. Number 2, the fast from escape, non-negotiable. For 40 days, you are cutting off every escape mechanism you use to numb yourself, distract yourself, or avoid discomfort. This is different for everyone, but you know what yours are. You know what you run to when you're stressed, bored, anxious, or uncomfortable. For most of you, it's going to include no social media, except for what's absolutely necessary for work, and be honest about what's actually necessary. No entertainment streaming, no Netflix, no Hulu, no YouTube binges, no TikTok, no recreational internet browsing, no video games, no novels or fiction reading. The Bible and books that draw you closer to God are fine, but no escape into another world reading. No shopping for pleasure, no excessive news consumption. I can already hear the objections. But Jonathan, I need to relax. I need to unwind. I need downtime. No, you don't. Not the way you think you do. What you need is God. What you need is to learn that He's enough. What you need is to stop running from discomfort and start sitting in it long enough to let Him meet you there. This fast is going to reveal how addicted you are to distraction. It's going to show you how much of your life is spent avoiding reality, avoiding God, avoiding the hard work of transformation. And it's going to hurt. You're going to feel bored. You're going to feel anxious. You're going to feel like you're missing out. Good. That's the death happening. That's your flesh being crucified. Stay in it. Don't run from it. Let it do its work. Additionally, I want you to fast from food 1 day per week during these 40 days. Pick a day, the same day each week, and don't eat from sundown the night before until sundown that day. Just water. Use the time you would have spent eating to pray, to sit in silence, to read scripture. Let your physical hunger remind you of your spiritual hunger. Let your body's weakness remind you of your need for God's strength. Daily requirement. Number 3, the honesty practice, non-negotiable. Every single day, you're going to practice radical honesty with God, with yourself, and with at least one other person. Here's what that looks like. With God, spend at least 15 minutes each day. This can be part of your hour of silence or separate from it, telling God the absolute truth about where you are. Not pretty prayers, not spiritual sounding language. The truth. God, I'm angry at you for this. God, I don't trust you with this area of my life. God, I'm terrified of what you might ask me to do. God, I'm more in love with comfort than I am with you. Whatever it is, say it. Get it out. Bring it into the light. With yourself. Keep a daily journal during these 40 days. Every day, write down at least one thing you're pretending about, one area where you're performing instead of being real, one place where you're hiding. Be brutally honest. No one else has to read this journal, so you have no reason to lie or sugarcoat. With another person, find one person, a trusted friend, a mentor, a small group, a spouse, and commit to checking in with them at least once a week during these 40 days. Tell them what God is showing you. Tell them where you're struggling. Tell them where you're being tempted to quit. Give them permission to ask you hard questions and to call you out if you're making excuses. This honesty practice is where shame dies. This is where religious masks come off. This is where you stop performing and start becoming real. And it's terrifying, which is exactly why most Christians never do it. But if you want to be marked, you have to be willing to be known, fully known, by God, by yourself, and by at least one other person. Daily requirement. Number 4, the obedience commitment, non-negotiable. During these 40 days, you are committing to immediate obedience to whatever God tells you to do. Not, I'll pray about it, not, let me think about it, not, that doesn't make sense. Immediate obedience. Here's how this works practically. As you spend time in silence, as you read scripture, as you go through your day, God is going to speak to you. He's going to prompt you to do things. Some of them will make sense. Some of them won't. Some of them will be comfortable. Most of them won't be. And your job is to obey immediately. Maybe he'll tell you to apologize to someone you've been avoiding. Do it that day. Maybe he'll tell you to give away something you're holding on to too tightly. Do it immediately. Maybe he'll tell you to have a hard conversation, to confess a sin, to change a habit, to end a relationship, to start something new. Whatever it is, obey immediately. This is where your will dies. This is where you learn that he's Lord, not you. This is where you discover that his ways are higher than your ways, and that immediate obedience, even when you don't understand, leads to breakthrough. Keep a record of what he tells you to do and how you respond. At the end of each day, review it. Did you obey immediately, or did you hesitate? Did you obey completely, or did you partially obey? Be honest. And when you fail, because you will fail, confess it immediately, receive his grace, and commit to doing better the next time. Daily requirement. 5. The surrender ritual, non-negotiable. 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night, you're going to practice surrender. Here's what that looks like. Find a quiet place, even if it's just a bathroom stall at work or your car in a parking lot. Get on your knees if possible. Open your hands, palms up, and then, out loud, surrender everything you're holding on to. God, I surrender my plans for today. I surrender my expectations. I surrender my need to be in control. I surrender my relationships, my spouse, my children, my friends. I surrender my job, my finances, my health. I surrender my ministry, my reputation, my future. I surrender my rights, my comfort, my preferences. I surrender my will. I choose your will over mine. I choose death to self. I choose to be marked as yours. Say it out loud. Mean it. And then sit there for a few minutes with your hands still open, symbolically releasing everything to him. This practice, done 3 times a day for 40 days, will fundamentally rewire your default position. Instead of gripping and controlling, you'll learn to release and trust. Instead of demanding your own way, you'll learn to prefer his way. Instead of living with clenched fists, you'll learn to live with open hands. The weekly rhythm. In addition to the daily requirements, here's the weekly rhythm I want you to follow. Sunday, attend a church service, but don't just consume. Go with the intention of giving, serve in some capacity, encourage someone, pray for someone, be the church, not just attend church. Monday, Saturday, follow the daily requirements listed above. Your chosen fast day each week. No food from sundown to sundown. Spend extra time in prayer and scripture. Let your physical hunger drive you to spiritual hunger. One day each week, I recommend Saturday, do a longer silence session. Instead of 1 hour, spend 2 or 3 hours in complete silence before God. Go to a park, a hiking trail, a quiet room, somewhere you can be alone and undistracted for an extended period. This is where the deeper revelations come. This is where he speaks the things that require more time to unpack. The community component. You cannot do this alone. You need community. You need accountability. You need other people who are pursuing the marking with the same intensity you are. So here's what I want you to do. Find at least 2 other people who are committing to this 40-day challenge and form a small group. Meet once a week, in person if possible, virtually if necessary. Share what God is showing you. Share where you're struggling. Pray for each other. Encourage each other. Hold each other accountable. If you can't find anyone in your physical community who's willing to do this, connect with others in the comments of these videos. Form virtual groups. Use video calls. Do whatever you need to do to not walk this path alone. The Ash Wednesday starting point on Ash. Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. I want you to do something specific. Whether you attend a traditional Ash Wednesday service or not, I want you to mark the beginning of these 40 days with a personal ceremony. Find a quiet place, get on your knees, and pray this prayer out loud. Jesus, I'm saying yes, yes to death, yes to surrender, yes to being marked as yours. I'm committing to 40 days of silence, fasting, honesty, obedience, and surrender. I'm letting go of comfort. I'm letting go of control. I'm letting go of casual Christianity. I want to be part of your remnant. I want to be prepared for the shaking. I want to stand when everything else falls. Mark me, seal me, prepare me. I'm yours, completely yours, for the next 40 days and for the rest of my life. In Jesus' name, amen. After you pray that prayer, take a moment and physically mark yourself. Touch your forehead where the ashes would go and declare out loud, I am marked, I am chosen, I am His. The deadline warning. Listen to me carefully. Ash Wednesday is February 18th, 2026. That's 12 days from today. You have 12 days to prepare, to get your schedule arranged, to find your accountability partners, to make whatever adjustments you need to make to be able to commit to this fully. And then you have 40 days, from February 18th through March 29th, Easter Sunday, to pursue the marking with everything in you. After Easter, the window closes. Not the window of salvation, that's always open, but the window of preparation for the shaking. After Easter 2026, there will be a brief period of seeming normalcy, and then the shaking begins. And if you're not marked by then, if you're not prepared by then, you're going to be caught off guard. You're going to be swept up in the chaos. You're going to be wounded and confused and weakened instead of standing strong and being a light in the darkness. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this because Jesus told me to warn you. I'm saying this because I've seen what's coming, and I don't want you to miss the preparation. I'm saying this because I love you enough to tell you the hard truth instead of the comfortable lie. You have 52 days total, 12 days to prepare, 40 days to be marked, and then everything changes. The cost and the reward. I'm not going to lie to you. These 40 days are going to be hard, harder than anything you've done spiritually before. You're going to want to quit. You're going to feel like it's too much. You're going to be tempted to compromise, to cut corners, to convince yourself that a partial commitment is good enough. Your flesh is going to scream against the silence. Your addiction to distraction is going to rage against the fast. Your pride is going to resist the honesty. Your will is going to fight the obedience. Your need for control is going to battle the surrender. There will be days when you fail, days when you miss the hour of silence because you overslept, days when you break the fast because you were stressed and reached for your phone without thinking, days when you're not honest because you're too afraid, days when you delay obedience because it's uncomfortable, days when you grip instead of surrender. And that's okay. This isn't about perfection. This is about pursuit. This is about getting back up every time you fall. This is about confessing immediately, receiving grace, and continuing forward. The marking isn't for those who do it perfectly. The marking is for those who do it desperately, who pursue it relentlessly, who refuse to give up even when they fail. But here's what you need to understand. The cost is high, but the reward is higher. The reward is being marked, being sealed, being prepared, being part of the remnant, being able to stand when everything else falls, being used by God in ways you never imagined, being a light in the darkness, being a witness to His kingdom, being part of what He's doing in the earth in this critical season. The unmarked will survive, but the marked will thrive. The unmarked will be confused, but the marked will have clarity. The unmarked will be weakened, but the marked will be strengthened. The unmarked will be wounded, but the marked will be healers. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Without question, without hesitation. It's worth every uncomfortable moment, every sacrifice, every death, every surrender. My personal commitment. I'm doing this with you. Starting on Ash Wednesday, I'm committing to the same 40 days, the same daily requirements, the same weekly rhythm, the same pursuit of the marking. I'm not asking you to do anything I'm not willing to do myself, and I'm going to be checking in regularly throughout the 40 days. I'll be posting updates, sharing what God is showing me, offering encouragement, answering questions. You're not alone in this. We're in this together. We're a community of people pursuing the marking, preparing for the shaking, choosing to be part of the remnant. The final call. I'm standing here on this island overlook in the full light of day, looking out over this beautiful, peaceful ocean, and I'm thinking about what Jesus showed me in the darkness. I'm thinking about the shaking that's coming. I'm thinking about the church that's unprepared. I'm thinking about the remnant that's being formed. And I'm thinking about you who have watched all 4 parts of this message, you who have felt something stirring in your spirit, You who are hungry for more than comfortable Christianity. You who are willing to die so that only Christ remains. This is your moment. This is your invitation. This is your opportunity to be marked, to be chosen, to be prepared. Ash Wednesday is February 18th, 2026, 12 days from now. The 40-day marking period runs from February 18th through March 29th, and then, after a brief window, the shaking begins. Don't miss this. Don't be unmarked. Don't be unprepared. I need you to do 3 things right now. First, drop a comment below. Tell me you're in. Tell me you're committing to the 40 days. Just type marked if you're ready to say yes. Or if you're scared, if you're hesitant, if you have questions, tell me that too. Be honest. This is a safe place. Second, share this message. I know that sounds self-promotional, but this isn't about me or my channel. This is about getting the warning out to as many people as possible. There are people in your life who need to hear this. People who are hungry for more. People who are being called to the remnant. Share this with them. Send them the link. Tell them to watch all 4 parts. Help me spread the warning. Third, start preparing now. Don't wait until Ash Wednesday. Start arranging your schedule. Start identifying your escape mechanisms. Start finding your accountability partners. Start preparing your heart. Use these next 12 days to get ready so that when Ash Wednesday comes, you can hit the ground running. The sun is high in the sky now. The ocean is sparkling. The seabirds are still circling. Everything looks normal. Everything looks peaceful. Everything looks like it will continue on just as it always has. But I know what's coming. I've seen it. I've been warned, and now I've warned you. The shaking is coming, but the marked will stand. Be marked, be chosen, be prepared. I'll see you on the other side of the 40 days. I'll see you standing when everything else falls. I'll see you as part of the remnant that demonstrates his kingdom to a world that desperately needs to see something real. This island overlook has become sacred ground for me. This is where Jesus met me. This is where he showed me what's coming. This is where he gave me the plan. And as I stand here now, looking out over this vast ocean, I'm reminded that God is bigger than the shaking. He's bigger than the chaos. He's bigger than the confusion. And he's preparing a people who will reveal his bigness to a world that's about to get very small, very dark, very desperate. Be that people. Be the remnant. Be marked. The 40 days start in 12 days. Don't miss it. Your assignment depends on it. The shaking is coming. But you're going to stand, marked, chosen, prepared. The countdown begins now.